My stepfather betrayed my mom, bullied us for years, so we exposed his secret life and took everything. The following story was trending on Reddit for 3 days straight and came from a user called CourtLife43. She wasn't supposed to be in his office. That was rule number 1. No one touches my stuff. It didn't matter that it was our house too, that he wasn't our real father. The moment Jim married my mom, he acted like we were just tenants in his castle, and we owed rent in silence. But my sister didn't know any better. She was 10, curious, and that day after school, she just wanted to print out a worksheet for her science fair. That's all. Instead, she opened his laptop and discovered the truth. I got the call 20 minutes later. I was 20, living in a college dorm an hour away. My sister was whispering so quietly I could barely hear her. "I think Jim is doing something bad," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "There's stuff on his computer. Stuff about another lady. Her name's not Mom." I told her not to touch anything else. Told her to log out, close the laptop, and go to her room. I dropped everything, got in my car, and drove home. It was time. Jim had been in our lives for 8 years by then. My mom married him when I was 12. She was in that vulnerable space after my dad walked out. Lonely, broke, looking for someone who could give us structure. Jim did that. At first, he cooked dinners, fixed the sink, took us camping once. But it wasn't long before the mask slipped. He was controlling, passive-aggressive, the kind of guy who could ruin your day with one sentence. He never shouted, but he didn't have to. He made us feel small just by walking into the room. He liked his rules. He liked being in charge. And he especially liked reminding my mom that she should be grateful. He stuck around for 2 kids that weren't his. By the time I turned 18, I had one goal: leave. And I did. College was my escape. But I couldn't bring my sister with me. Katie was still there, still walking on eggshells, still shrinking a little more every time I visited. It killed me. So when she called that day, I knew I couldn't just listen. I had to act. When I got home, Mom was still at work. Jim was running errands. The house was quiet. Katie met me at the door. She looked scared, like she'd done something wrong. "It's okay," I told her. "You didn't do anything wrong. Just show me." She led me to the office. I logged into the laptop. The email was still open. Dozens of messages. Another woman. Her name was Darla. They talked like they were a secret team, making plans, talking about vacations, late-night messages about how she'll never find out, and we're almost there. No, it wasn't explicit. It was something worse. It was intimate. He wasn't just cheating. He was building another life. And the rest of us? We were just background noise. I screenshot everything. Every message. Every calendar invite. Every selfie they exchanged. Every receipt for things he'd sent her. Flowers, dinners, hotel stays. Then I copied it all onto a flash drive. Labeled the folder Plan B. Because now we had one. I didn't tell Jim. Didn't breathe a word. That weekend, I went back to campus and called Mom every day. I needed to hear her voice. Listen for clues. See if she knew. She didn't. But she felt something. You can hear that in someone. The way their sentences drag. The way they say fine, like it's a placeholder for something more painful. On Thursday, I asked her, "Do you know anyone named Darla?" She went silent. "Why?" she asked carefully. "Because I think Jim does. And I think you need to see something." We met the next morning. A cafe near my school. I handed her the flash drive. She didn't open it right away. "I already knew," she whispered. "I just didn't want it to be real." She looked older than I remembered. Like all the stress had finally caught up. Then she asked me, "If I leave, what happens next?" And I told her, "We don't just leave. We take everything he thought he owned." Jim always made my mom feel small. He'd helped with rent but insisted the house go in his name. He paid for groceries, then held it over her like a contract. He convinced her to quit her full-time job to take care of the house. He turned her into a dependent and then used that power to keep her quiet. But I was in business school. I knew how to reverse engineer that kind of trap. We started slowly. Opened a new bank account. Switched over her paycheck from her part-time job. Changed passwords to her email, her phone, even her health insurance. I had her meet with a financial advisor who helped us see just how much he relied on her income to cover the utilities and food. She wasn't dependent. She was funding his illusion. We separated everything. Then we called a divorce attorney. The lawyer was a pro. He took one look at the folder I compiled and said, "This is enough. We can file now and be done with him." We waited for the right moment. Then, on a Saturday when Jim was home, we had the papers delivered. I came home for it. Not to protect Mom. To watch. Jim opened the envelope and laughed at first. "You're joking, right? You think you can survive without me?" My mom looked at him calmly. "I've been surviving without you. You were just taking up space." He didn't go quietly. He slammed doors. Called her names. Claimed he gave her everything. That's when I handed him the printouts. His messages. His plans with Darla. "Katie found those," I said. His face dropped. The fight went out of him all at once. He moved out that week. We changed the locks, cut off his phone line, told Katie's school he was no longer an emergency contact. I helped Mom transfer the utilities into her name, opened a fraud alert in case he tried to open credit under hers. We locked it all down, but we weren't done yet. Because Jim had a reputation in town, a big one. And Darla? She worked at the same company as him. So we did what he never expected. We told the truth, loudly. Jim thought he was invincible. Even after the papers were served, after we kicked him out, after the shock started to wear off, he still had that smugness about him. Like he could just move in with Darla, lay low for a bit, and everything would eventually go back to normal. But Jim forgot something. Small towns have long memories and short patience for liars, especially when you show them proof. He and Darla worked at the same regional insurance firm, not in the same department, but close enough that everyone saw them at meetings, luncheons, and after-hours events. People had already whispered about them. You could feel it in how some coworkers side-eyed them in company photos. But no one had proof, until we gave it to them. I sent an envelope to their HR department. No return address, just a manila folder inside, labeled Internal Misconduct, see attached. I printed out a brief summary. Evidence of personal relationship between two employees. Compromised judgment regarding client referrals and cross-departmental work. Impact on employee morale. Attached screenshots of private communication and hotel bookings. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't even malicious. It was factual, and it set off a chain reaction. HR launched an investigation. Quietly at first. We only knew because a mutual friend who worked in admin tipped us off. Something's happening with Jim and Darla, she texted. People are acting weird around them. Their boss had a meeting with both last Friday. She looked pissed. That was all I needed to hear. Meanwhile, my mom was starting to breathe again. She smiled more. She stopped jumping every time the phone rang. She even painted the living room, something she hadn't done in years because Jim said neutral colors only. Katie came out of her shell too. She played music again, started drawing, told me one night, "The house feels lighter now." That broke me a little. Kids shouldn't know what emotional air pressure feels like. But just because we were healing didn't mean I was finished. There was still the matter of the mortgage. Jim had always made it sound like he owned the house. Turns out, he didn't. My mom had put down the original deposit from her inheritance, and all the payments were made from their joint account, funded mostly by her part-time job and small savings. And I had the bank statements to prove it. We brought everything to the divorce attorney. He filed a motion for a full financial review of the assets. Jim panicked. We knew because he called my mom 3 times in a single day after months of silence. First time, she didn't answer. Second time, he left a voicemail. "You're ruining everything. We could have worked this out like adults." Third time, I answered. "You don't get to talk to her anymore," I said. "You don't control this narrative now. You're not even part of it." Click. 2 weeks later, the lawyer called. Jim had agreed to mediation. Translation, he knew he was losing. At mediation, Jim showed up with a new haircut and a folder full of apologies. Said he didn't want to fight, that he just wanted to move on. My mom didn't say a word to him. She let the lawyer handle everything. And when the final agreement was reached, she got the house. He forfeited all claims to joint assets. He even agreed to cover part of Katie's school tuition to avoid the fallout of a formal hearing. Because that was the other thing he didn't realize. Everything we found, it wasn't just embarrassing. It was public record. While all this was happening, something else came to light. Darla was married too. And her husband had no idea. Until we told him. We debated it, honestly. It felt like opening a second front in a war we were already winning. But Katie was the one who spoke up. He deserves to know. Just like Mom did. She was right. So I reached out. Found his business email through a local directory. Wrote a simple, polite message. Included the evidence folder. No commentary. Just facts. He replied 24 hours later. "Thank you. I had no idea. I'll take it from here." A week later, Darla filed for extended leave. And 2 weeks after that, she was gone from the company website. So was Jim. I later found out from that same admin friend that HR let both of them go after the internal probe. Not for the affair itself, technically not against company policy, but for reputational damage and conduct unbecoming of senior staff. They lost their jobs, their relationships, and their reputations, all because they thought they were untouchable. One day, maybe 6 weeks after the dust had settled, Mom and I were sitting on the front porch. She was drinking tea, and I was going through emails. She looked over and said, "I don't know how we made it through all of that." I just smiled. Because we finally stopped protecting people who never protected us. She nodded, then said the one thing I'll never forget. "Thank you for saving me." But the truth is, she saved herself. I just gave her the blueprint. Jim tried one more time to reach out. Sent a long email about how he'd changed and learned from this and wanted to be there for Katie. I printed it out, handed it to her, and asked, "Do you want a reply?" She looked at it for a long time, then crumpled it. He doesn't deserve a reply. It's strange how quiet the house felt once he was gone. Not just physically quiet, though it was. No more stomping feet down the hallway. No more slammed cabinet doors when someone forgot to rinse their dishes. No more passive-aggressive muttering about bills or chores. The quiet I'm talking about was emotional. Like the constant tension had been a sound we'd all gotten used to, and now that it was gone, the silence felt like a warm blanket we'd never known we needed. Katie started humming again when she got ready for school. Mom left the radio on in the kitchen. For the first time in years, we could breathe without asking permission. But healing isn't glamorous. It doesn't happen in a day, or a week, or even a few court filings and clean legal wins. Jim had occupied that house like a shadow for nearly a decade. He left behind more than dirty laundry and receipts. He left behind habits, emotional bruises, silence. So, we went room by room. Not just to clean, but to reclaim. We threw out the old furniture he picked. The beige couches, the cold chrome lamps, the wall clock he insisted was minimalist, but always made Mom frown. We sold what we could, donated the rest. Then we painted. Light blue in the living room, sage green in the hallway, yellow in the kitchen. The house started to feel like it belonged to us again, not to him. Meanwhile, Jim didn't go far. Small towns don't offer many places to hide. He moved into a rental on the edge of town, an older duplex that shared a driveway with a retired couple. We heard he tried applying to several other companies nearby. Word got around. None of them called back. Eventually, someone spotted him working at a hardware store. My mom found out through the grapevine. She didn't say much. She just smiled and went back to painting the guest room. What got me, though, what really made me realize how deeply this man relied on controlling our image of him, was how quickly he unraveled once the illusion cracked. He stopped showing up to community events. He removed himself from the town's Facebook group. He even skipped his cousin's wedding, which, if you knew Jim, was a bigger deal than any job loss. Family events were his stage, and now he had no audience. People whispered when they saw him at the grocery store. Some crossed the street. Others just stared. He wasn't the friendly neighborhood stepdad anymore. He was the guy who lost his job, his wife, his stepkids, because he thought no one would find out. But they did. One day, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Daniel, my dad. He and Mom had split when I was 10. I hadn't talked to him in nearly 8 years, not since he moved 2 states away and quietly faded out of our lives. His message was short. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't respond at first. I was still carrying too much. But a week later, I called him. He cried, said he regretted letting us go, that he'd watched from a distance, never sure if stepping in would help or hurt more. I didn't forgive him on that call, but I didn't hang up either. That was something. Katie and I started spending more time together. We built a little routine. Friday night movie marathons, Sunday pancakes, afternoons at the library where she'd work on school projects and I'd help her look up colleges, not because she was applying yet, but just so she could dream. I wanted her to know what possibility felt like again. Mom went back to school. She signed up for night classes at the community college to finish the degree she dropped when I was born. At first, she was hesitant, worried she was too old, too tired, too behind. But she wasn't. She was brilliant. She aced her first semester and started tutoring younger students. I watched her come back to life in real time. And all the while, Jim watched us from the outside. He tried one more time to worm his way back in. This time through Katie. It started small, a birthday card. No return address. Just a note inside that said, "I still think about you. I'm sorry." Katie showed it to Mom right away. They sat on the couch and talked for a long time. Later, Katie came into my room and said, "I don't want anything from him. Not a card. Not an apology. I just want peace." So we shredded it. And we blocked his number on every device again. We held a bonfire that fall. Invited some neighbors, family friends. Made it a small celebration. For Mom finishing her first semester. For Katie acing her math exam. For the simple fact that we'd made it through one of the worst years of our lives together. We roasted marshmallows. Laughed. Listened to old songs that Mom used to dance to in the kitchen when things were good. At one point, Katie leaned against my shoulder and whispered, "Do you think he can see us being happy?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I hope so." Because that was the real win. Not the court victories. Not the house. Not the job losses or the public shame. It was this. The quiet. The freedom. The fact that we could rebuild from nothing and create something better. Something softer, stronger, safer. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. There's a different kind of power in walking away without leaving the door open. A lot of people think revenge means yelling, fire, wreckage, maybe even a viral post to make the whole world pick a side. That kind of revenge burns hot and fast. But it doesn't last. What does last is something colder, quiet, strategic, permanent. We didn't just ruin Jim's life. We erased him from ours. Completely. It started the day my mom got the final divorce decree in the mail. She didn't cry. She didn't call anyone. She didn't even tell Katie or me at first. She just framed it, put it on the wall inside the closet in her bedroom, behind a row of scarves, where only she would see it. Like a private reminder that freedom isn't loud, it's earned. Meanwhile, Jim kept trying to exist. That's the best way I can describe it. Existence, not living. He moved out of town 6 months after the divorce. Rumors said he tried to start fresh somewhere rural, near the state line, but couldn't hold a job for more than a few weeks. His reputation didn't travel far, but it traveled far enough. Small business owners talk, and wherever he went, someone always knew someone. He stayed single. As far as we knew, he and Darla never reconnected. After both their marriages ended, they had no reason to pretend anymore, and without secrecy, there was nothing left. Funny how that works. Mom eventually got her degree. She walked across the stage in a navy gown with honors cords hanging from her neck. Katie and I sat in the front row. When they called her name, she didn't smile like I thought she would. She stood tall, nodded once, like she was taking back years of silence in one single step. When she got off the stage, she hugged Katie first, then me, and said quietly, "Let's go home." That was something we never used to say. Let's go home. We used to say, let's go back to the house. Or let's get through the evening. But now, it was home, because he wasn't in it anymore. Jim tried again a year later. Katie had just turned 12. She was thriving. Student council, piano lessons, a shelf of science fair trophies. She'd come so far from the quiet, wide-eyed girl who used to flinch every time someone raised their voice. But Jim didn't know that. He sent her a message on Instagram, from a burner account. Just her name. One sentence. I never stopped caring. She brought it straight to us. Didn't even hesitate. We took screenshots, reported the account, and then I contacted a friend of mine who worked in IT. In less than 24 hours, we had an IP location. 2 days later, we had a name and address. He'd made a new account under a fake identity. But we knew. Mom called our lawyer. We didn't press charges, yet. But we did have a cease and desist drawn up. Hand-delivered. He got the message. That was the last time he tried to reach out. At some point, we realized we didn't talk about him anymore. Not because we were avoiding the subject, but because he just didn't exist. There were no photos of him in the house. No stories that began with, "Remember when Jim?" He was gone. Scrubbed. Even the few objects he left behind, his tools in the garage, a framed certificate in the office, a broken watch in the junk drawer, we boxed it all up and left it at a donation center without a name on the label. Whoever took that box would never know what it used to mean. And neither did we anymore. One day, Katie asked me something that stopped me cold. "Do you think people like him ever change?" I thought about it. Not for a second, but for a long, honest moment. Then I said, "I think they only change when it stops working for them." She nodded. Then I'm glad we made it stop. She was 13 when she gave a speech at her school about the person who inspires me the most. She didn't name me, or Mom, or anyone from TV. She said, "The person who inspires me is my past self," because she made it through something hard without letting it make her hard. I cried in the parking lot, not because I was sad, but because I realized she didn't need revenge to grow. She just needed peace, and we gave it to her. As for Mom, she became someone else entirely. She joined a nonprofit, started mentoring women who were trying to leave unhealthy relationships. She didn't tell them her full story. She didn't need to. They could feel it in her presence, that calm, weathered strength of someone who's walked through fire and didn't let it touch her face. She built something out of the wreckage, not just a new life, a better one. And me? I finished school, moved to a nearby city, took a job I actually liked, started seeing someone quiet, respectful, patient, the kind of man who didn't fill silence with control. I told him the story, eventually, not all at once, but piece by piece, and he never tried to fix it, or dismiss it, or compete with it. He just said, "I'm glad you got out." And that was enough. 3 years after Jim left, I got a letter in the mail. It was forwarded from our old address. No name on the envelope, no return address. Inside, a card with no words, just a single photograph. It was a picture of a house, run down, overgrown yard, shutters falling off the hinges. I recognized it. It was where he lived now. Nothing else was in the envelope. No note, no apology, no threat, just a picture, like he wanted me to know, to see where he'd ended up, to feel something. I didn't. I burned it in the sink that night and forgot about it. Because here's the truth about people like Jim. They don't break you with what they do. They break you with how long it takes to believe they did it on purpose. They make you question your gut, your judgment, your worth. But once you stop trying to understand them, once you realize they were never confused, they just got caught, that's when you take your power back. And you don't give it back. Not ever. So no, we didn't scream. We didn't throw fists. We didn't need a dramatic courtroom showdown. We just quietly tore down everything he built with his lies, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but a man with no audience, and a family that was finally, fully free.